7.25, Dota 2 Ursa is by far the most broken hero in the game. So let's just start by reading his patch notes. Let me introduce myself first, actually. My name is Vinny, and I am a top 100 Ursa player. This is basically the first hero I started winning on this in Visage, like 7+ years ago when I started playing the game. It's just always been a consistent carry for me. It has been really nerfed into the ground. This is the cycle of Ursa, right? Ursa for years and years has been really bad in competitive high MMRs. Then, it gets buffed, it's really strong, it gets nerfed back into the ground, which is what happened after he got that hop, right? He got that little hop on his first ability, the Earth Shock, and then he gets nerfed all the way down to the ground where it's just like, okay, take away the hop. Give me back what I had before, and you can have the hop. I don't care. But in this patch, we get to keep the hop, and our hero's overpowered as hell all of a sudden. So let's read these changes. As soon as I read this first line, I was like, okay, well, this is just going to be pure nerfs after this, right? Because this is unbelievable. So what we have here is Fury Swipe's damage increased, scaling from 7 to 28. Now it's 10 to 40. On paper, this is an increase of about a third, a little bit more than that, like almost 40% of an increase. That's unspeakably huge. Like, unspeakably. Because when you have Ursa, every hit he does is stacking up additional damage with his Fury Swipes. So the first hit, 3 more. Second hit, 6 more. 9 more. Etc. And that number is just multiplying with levels. This is a huge deal because Ursa's early levels, he went from being an early game monster to being trash in the early game, which is so out of line with his hero identity in my opinion. But now he got a lot of that early game power back and a ton of late game power. So I was like, okay, this is a massive buff, but surely he's going to get nerfed after that. Okay, here we go. Here's the nerfs, right? Overpower, attack count, and reduce. That's fine though. I'm used to the 3 to 6 hit Ursa. For me, this explained the lore behind that notorious Alpine Ursa set. Cowboy Ursa, it's kind of got like that 6-shooter. So this is a 6-shooter revolver. The 6 hits makes sense to me. But then hold up. I thought there was gonna be more nerfs. No, overpower cooldown reduced at max from 10 to 7. That means you're gonna be getting off a lot of overpowers, and this isn't something where it's like you're kind of limited by mana and additional casts don't really help you out. No, additional casts help you out very much so, because again, Fury Swipes is gonna let you scale to infinite damage. So this is actually better than what it was. 7 attacks on a 10-second cooldown ends up being less than 6 attacks on a 7-second cooldown. And to top it off, the mana cost is reduced, which is great. Ursa has tons of mana cost problems. So I think Ice Frog thought he was nerfing this, but he actually buffed it. He buffed Overpower. And now he's overpowered. Now we got Enrage. Enrage no longer has a Fury Swipes multiplier. Well, okay, there you go. I mean, that would just be unfair now that it does this much damage. Oh, wait, but we get some duration. That's very good. Up to a second more duration at max level. The cooldown gets reduced back to what it was. Nice. And this is huge. Enraged gets you 50% status resistance. That means you're stunned for half as long. A 2-second stun is now only 1 second. That's very nice. Most people told me that they thought this was a nerf. This is not a nerf. This is also a buff. Losing the damage, it sucks. But status resistance, this duration, and this cooldown, this is comparable. I won't say it's purely better, but the reason why it ends up being purely better is because it actually simplifies the ulti a lot. Before, you were kind of playing a risk management game with the ulti, trying to decide, do I need to use this offensively or defensively? Because it gives me damage, but it also makes me practically invincible. Now, it's only defensive. So you're way less likely to mess this thing up now. So it's actually a buff. Because it's just much more streamlined to use this. You don't need to think about these additional levels of, will I need that 1 more damage? Or, that little bit of Fury Swipes multiplier to get this kill. Now, just let it go when you think you're in danger. And it's kind of more damage on, let's say I'm trying to kill Lion, right? Lion's got a whole host of stuns. I enrage to go on that Lion. Doesn't matter. I'm stunned that whole time. that bonus damage never ends up happening because I'm stunned that whole time. Now if I go online and I pop and rage, I'm only going to be stunned for a fairly short period of time, so I can actually hit him. So it ends up being more damage than the one that actually gave damage. And then hold up, one more buff to top it all off. You lose the status resistance on your ulti for 3 overpower attacks. Ursa's supposed to be bad in the late game. Now he's insane. So that's to give you an outline of what the kind of buffs you got on this Ursa now. And let's go into some gameplay on the Ursa while I talk about how to play him and I show you the guide. So, while that loads up, I'm going to pull up the Ursa guide. Okay. This right here is my guide for Ursa in 7.25. I'll put this in the description of the video. Here's your starting items. Ursa still has pretty horrible damage, so we are going to go Quelling Blade. We are a carry, so we are going to still go Quelling Blade to try to get those last hits. Ring of Protection, this is kind of like your Stout Shield of Yester Patch. Very nice on an Ursa because you are, again, you're scaling damage over time. So you don't so much want damage as you want defensive utility in that early laning stage. Your typical regen and a branch. You can switch this up a little bit if you wanted to, but I would stay away from things like Boots, Windlace, Orb of Venom. These are traps. You're still not very good at level 1. These are traps. These are for later on, when you're actually strong and capable of manning up. That's not to say you can't do things at level 1. You can and you will, because your hero's pretty broken, but this is just not ideal. Not at all. Early game, Windlace, Orb of Venom, maximum kill potential, Wand, because it's just the best item in the game. Phase Boots, move speed, what more is there to say? Move speed is just really good on Ursa. Raindrop, these are just optional regen items that you'll probably end up needing for your mana, health, and regen. So, core items, the true core item is Skull Basher. That you will buy 100% of your games, no question asked. Your first decision is between Vlad's and Mask of Madness. Vlad's will give you mana, which you need a lot of. Mask of Madness will give you movement speed, which you also need, and the attack speed. The attack speed is situationally good. It's not always that good because most of the time you have tons of attack speed from Overpower. But obviously Overpower doesn't last forever, and in those down periods of time you can use Mask of Madness. Be very mindful that this does silence you, so if you silence yourself and then don't get off your ulti and die, well, maybe you should have gone Vlad's instead. But as long as you're paying attention and you know the situations that can arise, I'm sure you'll handle this very well and you won't silence yourself in a manner that's going to kill you. Vlad's is also the team item. In the replay we're going to look at from me, I'm going to get a Vlad's because I have a Meepo on my team, and it's very good for my Meepo. So both these items are equally viable. Don't be fooled. I just had, I chose one to put here. Both of them are equally viable. I think more people are, in high MMR at least, more people are going Mask of Madness than Vlad's. And I agree with that. It just depends how well does your team make use of the Vlad's. Vlad's also has better small components, like the Ring of Bacillus, which could be very necessary for you. And then Aghanims. I think Aghanims is the new BKB for Ursa now. Unless there's silences. If there's silences, go ahead, take the BKB, because you cannot use the Aghanim's ulti if you're silenced. You can use it if you're stunned, but not if you're silenced. If you're silenced, get BKB. But otherwise, let's just take this Ags. It's going to give you more ultis, so you can pop it to get out of those stuns all the time. And again, because your ulti is so much easier and sensible to use now, you don't have to feel bad about using it, even though you're not getting any hits off. Plus, it's going to give you that status resistance. It's going to make it extremely hard to die to the likes of your Beastmasters, your Lions. Although keep in mind that Hex is still a silence, so if you're hexed, Ags won't remove it, but you will remove like the Earth Spikes and the Shackles of a Shaman. Whatever, any stun you can think of. Late game, Abyssal. Obviously, this item is just like the best carry item in the game, and it has a blink on it now, so Blink's extremely valuable to Ursa. Speaking of which, Blink is not it's no longer 100% every game an item on Ursa. Just because it's built into that Abyssal Blade and you have that hop on the Earthshock, I still get it from time to time. You can do it. It's just you're gonna run out of slots on this guy pretty fast. If you're an offlane Ursa, which is viable too, then I would be a little bit more inclined to go for the Blink because you're gonna have more slots open. And I chose Monkey King Bar for the last damage item because evasion hurts Ursa really bad. You lose overpowered charges when you miss, and Monkey King Bar is just good damage. Things like Daedalus, that they do not crit off of overpower damage, so there's not really any synergy between those other damage items like Daedalus. Nullifier is another perfectly good option. It's a lot of damage and it will prevent your target from being forced or glimmered. Battlefury is the final path that you can take your carrier Ursa on. You would go Battlefury against like a Naga or a PL, Nature's Prophet. Or if you just feel like you need to hard carry for some reason, you don't think you can end the game early, but also your teammates aren't going to farm that much either. It gives you a lot of regen, which is nice, and really helps you farm those waves fast. You cannot cleave off of your Fury Swipes damage, so you'll stack up a ton of damage on your target, but the cleaves aren't actually going to get any bigger. But that's not the worst loss ever. Desolator, just great damage and very good at pushing. Ursa's horrible at pushing towers, so this makes it a little bit better. If you have no push, you have to get this item because Ursa prefers to end the game early, even though he's still good in the late game now. You still prefer to end the game early, and Desolator is the only item that's really going to let you do that on Ursa, because if you have no push and it goes late, chances are the rest of your team's not good at late game either. So then we got the very situational Satanic S&Y build if you just need a bunch of stash resistance, but you get that from your ulti. So, you know, if there's like just an unbelievable amount of disables and they're like instant and they're silences, then you can consider picking those up. Silver Edge, very situational, just some extra mobility if you need break against a Bristleback or a PA perhaps, but even against PA I would rather just get Monkey King Bar, you know. Divine Rapier, if there's a lot of evasion and it's just a last-ditch effort. Scythe of Vice, if you need to disable somebody that you have no stuns for, like a Storm or a Puck. And that you just eat in the late game. That doesn't really matter. As for the skill build, we're going to max Fury Swipes first. No duh. The only unique thing about this is we're going to take 2 points in Earthshock. The most common build only takes 1. Some take 0. Earthshock we're going to level now because the hop is really good, and this having both skills is a lot of mana. It's a lot of mana, more than we probably will ever have in the early game. And the Earthshock, we're going to take 2 points because 1 point only gets you 10% slow. 2 points is going to get you 15% additional slow on top of that. So that second point is a bit of a value point when you think about it. And then this is for the Vlad's build. For the Vlad's build, I would just straight go into max overpower, skipping your talents, because you have mana from that. If you go Mask of Madness, then go ahead, take your mana talent at 10 and delay the overpower a little bit. If you go Mask of Madness, I would not level your ulti at 12. I would level it at 13. Because the ulti doesn't scale that amazingly now. It used to give damage, but now you're just getting a little bit of cooldown and half a second of duration. Not that big of a deal. So I would level your ulti at 13 if you're going the Mask of Madness build. And the talents are very this one, again, the presentation is not great, but again, this will all be linked. Mana regen, agility, Fury Swipes damage, and then we're going to go the 3 extra overpower hits. So the first thing you want to think about is, alright, what does my hero do against their heroes? So Ursa Void Spirit, I should destroy this Void Spirit because it looks like it's going to be an offlane Void Spirit. Snapfire, same deal, I should destroy her. All of her spells are fairly telegraphed, which means I should be able to react to them. And Enrage to dodge most of the damage. Slark, that one's very volatile. So Slark can be very good against Ursa. He can just dodge all your stuff, out mobility you, but you can also just burst down the Slark if you get off to the much better start, which really you should get off to the better start, especially in this game, because I'm going to have an Enigma denying the range creeps of the Slark. So if I don't get off to a better start, it's completely my fault. Shadow Fiend, you usually destroy Shadow Fiend. Same deal. His only disable, extremely telegraphed. That damage also extremely telegraphed. Unless he's doing it beyond frame perfectly with a Yule's combo, then what does he really do to me? Oracle? Oracle will purge overpower, which sucks. And he will save the target I'm going on, but overall, I don't care. I mean, Ursa has very sustained damage now. That's the big deal. Ursa used to be kind of a, you know, one pump chump, right? You just burst and use your ulti and, well, hopefully we won the fight. But now, you have very low cooldown on all this. You have a hop. You have status res. It's very hard to stop you from chasing them. So I'm going to mana for these ruins because I do have a Lich, which is a very strong 5 at level 1. And again, I'm not scared of these heroes at all as an Ursa. Just trade, trade, trade. The longer they trade with you, the worse the trade becomes. And that's a sorry, alright. I don't know. I mean, I know why he went that way. He's trying to juke out the Lich, but he just completely forgets about the Ursa and dies. So, when it comes to playing Ursa, you want to man up as much as possible, unless it's going to cost you a last hit. So, you'll see there, I'm going to get my hit in, but then this creep is within last hit range, go back for the creep. So you hit the enemy, when the creep gets ready, you take the creep. And it's really that simple. There's nobody that can out-trade you so much anymore. Again, this went from 7 to 10, which is just massive. And again, we're going to start the ring. If we'd started an Orb of Venom, yeah, we'll get in, you know, one more hit, but we're going to be taking a good, like, 12% more from their right clicks back, and I don't want that. I'd rather wait till, like, level 3 to get the Orb of Venom, at which point my Fury Swipes are doing literally twice as much damage. That being said, I got First Blood, so I have it already at level 2. And especially at higher MMR, or against literally anyone who knows what they're doing, Earthshock is going to let you get off more hits than an Overpower would. Because they already need you standing right next to you to hit them with Overpower. So, they're just going to, you know, wait it out. And there we see the Orb of Venom working out, and we kill him. So Orb of Venom got kind of destroyed in this patch, which it did deserve. I have said many times this is easily one of the best items in the game. But for Ursa, it's actually not that destroyed. Yeah, the damage is 25% of what it used to be, and it lasts only 2 seconds compared to 3. It's quite literally gutted. But it did get a little bit more slow. Ursa doesn't really need that much more damage. He does so much more damage. A little bit more slow. That's fair enough. This is still almost as good as it used to be. For Ursa, at least. For your people like Mars, or Nyx, or any other melee hero, period, pretty much, then this would be a nerf. But for an Ursa, it's fine. For a Slark, it might be fine too. But it's certainly not as good as Ursa. Ursa is by far the best Orb of Venom user there is now. Alright, this kill attempt here. We jump on the guy, and he makes a responsible decision. Most people might go 2 points in Resonant Pulse, but he knows that this lane is so bad for him that he needs the defensive utility of Dissimulate. He's gonna go over there. I think it was the right choice. I'm not sure. I don't know. But gets off a nice little juke, sort of, but no way he's getting away from me. Hungry Bear. I think I'm gonna cut a tree here. Yeah, I'm gonna cut a tree to round that corner slightly more efficiently. And then here he gets off a second Dissimulate. He could have gone over here, but then he might have been stuck in the trees. But then he could have TP'd, I guess. So that was a huge misplay by him. I think he could have TP'd if he got into those trees. But Instead, he tries to escape all the way, but no, you're not escaping away from 2 hops, 2 points in hop Ursa. So, Orb of Venom, 15%, 25%, 40% slow already. Because this is going to be lasting for 4 seconds. And it's on an 8-second cooldown, so that's a 50% uptime on this slow. And it's practically a 100% uptime on your Orb of Venom slow.